Hello, everybody. Welcome to the media show. Nick Palavito, I'll be your host today, but it looks like we're going to have quite a few people joining us. And of course, our topic today will be Donald Trump and also the Trump trial, actually the trial of the century. And with that, we're going to bring in some of our speakers from around the United States. Rick Rosner, who's joined us from LA. We have Mark Lee, who has over 100 years experience in this. But he's getting some back feed. Oh, we can stop that. And we're going to look at the trial of the century. Maybe you have some updates on this, Rick.
So I've been watching the minute-by-minute feed of the opening arguments, and the prosecution wrapped up, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, and right now it's the defense saying he didn't do anything wrong, he didn't really have sex, that he had no idea what all the arguments that we thought they'd make, that he didn't know where the money was going to, and etc. Let's see if I can.
Okay, so the thing is, the prosecution was basically, are they saying he violated federal campaign laws by not reporting these funds that would be distributed? Is that the gist of their argument?
That's the gist of it, is that it's not illegal to have an affair, even with a porn star. It's not illegal to pay the porn star to keep her mouth shut. But if you make payments to influence the election and then you don't report it, then that is campaign fraud.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. Who makes the determination whether these payments were for campaign or not?
So, okay, so they're in recess. I guess each side has finished up their arguments, and it's up to the jury. And the closing statement from the Trump jury was, use your common sense. We're New Yorkers. It's why we're here. We trust you. You do that, then there will be a very swift not guilty verdict.
Really? So that was their statement, is it? New York,
that was just their closing.
Right.
They're trying to tear up Stormy Daniels. I've seen the Stormy Daniels documentary. I think she'll come across as very convincing. She seems like just like a competent, earnest, beaten down woman. Her super sexy porn days are probably largely over. She looks like a mom in her 40s. And so
right.
She's not going to be all slutty and dumb on the stand. And, but the part of the opening arguments, the defense said, leading up to the 2016 election, she saw her chance, to blackmail Trump. Though I'm not even, I don't remember. I don't think she was the one who, I don't know how the money was solicited or who decided to pay her a ton of money. I don't remember that part of it. But the Trump side is going to say, there was no sex, there was just blackmail, and because he's a rich, famous guy, and and they'll have a bunch of I believe she'll be more convincing.
But what is she going to say that's the big deal?
Well, she's going to tell her story, and we'll see how the whole thing came to be.
Right.
And she was victimized she was victimized by her own attorney, who's now in prison for stealing her money. Michael Avenatti was a shyster lawyer who went to prison for stealing her money and for stealing other clients' money. That seems to be.
She never got the money; it was stolen. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that she, I don't know, she wrote a book, and payments came through Avenatti, and she's like, well, where's my payments? I've only gotten one, and it turns out he'd stolen all the other. She's getting payments in installments.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So the money kind of dripped through Cohen's hands to Abernathy's hands. And that
Well, no. That money, the 130 hush money, she got. That was before she had, I think, Avenatti as a lawyer. But then she wrote a book, and she was maybe supposed to get $500,000, $750,000,
and he stole the money.
Yeah, that seems to be like the number one lawyer misbehavior is to steal clients' money, right?
Oh, actually, it is the number one reason attorneys get disbarred, by the way. Okay, what they do is they set, because when I read the Florida Bar News, I was looking, they have the Florida disciplinary procedures. In other words, what are attorneys doing that are really bad? Most of them, they set up attorneys' trust accounts. Okay, and they put money in the trust accounts. Usually, we used to have one because we do real estate closings through your trust account. I mean, that's kind of common. But what attorneys do is they borrow money from their trust account, and then they don't pay it back. Otherwise known as stealing, and then they get disbarred. I mean,
well, I think that's how I think that's how most financial crimes start. I'm going to borrow this money. I'm going to pay it back. I'm going to go to the. I'm going to play cards. I'll somehow get the money back. I'll use, Ponzi. I'll use later investors' money to pay back the first people, and then then somebody takes the money, borrows it. A few months pass, and you're not getting in trouble. So it's like,
why not borrow more? And the thing is, but it's the number one reason attorneys get disbarred. Number two is drug crimes. In other words, they get involved in drugs. As a matter of fact, they had a whole series in the Florida bar that 25% of the bar has problems with alcohol and drug abuse. And so they've been working on that from more of a mental health standpoint. But the stealing thing is by the way, it's a real small percentage. So it's 25% of a very small amount that run into this particular problem. But a lot of the bar associations, they set up a fund to take a victim's compensation fund to take care of it. Now, how we got around all that is we just never had a trust account. We have our clients write the check directly to the insurance company. So they take custody of all the assets. We don't take custody of anything. At least our pension company doesn't. And so for 23 years, since we don't take custody, we don't have that problem. The insurance companies do take custody, but the insurance companies are also reinsured by the state insurance guarantee funds. And I can never be sure, because when you're looking through financial statements of $70 billion companies, I can tell you, you don't know if something bad or good has happened to that particular insurance company. The financial statements are just overwhelming. Yeah.
There's another thing that people get old, including attorneys, and there are entire industries in the U.S. who depend on old people losing some of their marbles.
That's right.
And my dad was a CPA for 60 years, and those last 10 years, he shouldn't have been. He was still a fine CPA, but he couldn't manage his financial affairs. We're like, sell the practice, get out. And so because he was not on top of stuff, he was on top of his clients. He wasn't on top of and some attorneys. There's a famous attorney, I forget his name, in LA, who just started. He's using dementia as his defense, but he stole a ton of money. Now, did he get demented and start thieving, or is it just a BS defense?
Yeah. Well, usually when a client has financial issues, I recommend that they go with a trust company or a licensed bonded fiduciary like a trust company, so that if something happens, you have a place to go after. Now, with Trump, you realize he is not a publicly traded company. He's private, which is a problem because there's no SEC or FINRA oversight on anything that he's doing. So that the gamesmanship can have a lot more latitude that we're looking at right now. The real question is how is this campaign election fraud? Because realize that if he's running a $100 million, $1 billion company, he's spending money all the time on stuff. In other words, Stormy Daniels is just one of Lord knows how many things that could be called a campaign contribution. Is his golf course in Scotland a campaign contribution? I mean, you just go on and on. I'm not sure how they're going to defend that.
Hey, Nick, question for you on that and everything, because one of the things that I'm sure that many people are thinking about is that if he made promises, which is what a lot of people are saying were made, that they would get certain roles or that they would get a chance to be on Apprentice, which was a show, and along those lines. So if he made those kind of promises, wouldn't that be a form of fraud if you are making promises that you are not planning to keep whatsoever, and all along those lines? Because I think that that's one of the arguments that people are making, is that he made these promises, and we all have heard about the notion of the casting couch. It's been around forever and a day and everything. So maybe if he made these promises while he was having this relationship with Stormy Daniels, then that would be a form of fraud.
I'm going to defend Trump.
We're not thinking necessarily.
Wait a minute. We have
is what
Rick
the money was going
Rosser who's actually going to defend Trump. This is a
all right.
first.
So Trump, with Stormy Daniels, positioned himself as her mentor. And, she was fine to hang out with this rich guy who, had the reputation for being smart, and, until he sexually coerced her. But like he said, he was going to get her on The Apprentice. And my defense is, he didn't care who was on The Apprentice. So yeah, he said, I'll get you on The Apprentice. And he's dumb. He didn't do the thinking that what is it? NBC might have a problem with making a porn star part of the cast.
Right.
So, so he went to NBC, I assume, unless he's lying. And he said, I want to store this lady. And they said, are you freaking kidding? And then he said, sorry, turned out I can't get you on the show after all. But
apparently he made these promises before, because one of the things, we lost a athlete that has also been accused of by many, and there is no doubt that many people, including in the African American community, believe that he did it, committed murder, even though there are a lot that stood by him and everything. But apparently he made that same promise to O.J. Simpson, because I've heard that he also promised to O.J. Simpson, and there have been reports ever since his death that he was promised a chance to be on The Apprentice as well.
So what?
There were sexual favors.
I mean, the thing is, so what? There was no contract there. There was no oral contract. What did O.J. Simpson do for Donald? Nothing.
And again, Trump is dumb. Trump is dumb. He's like, yeah, OJ, I'll get you on the TV. And then
I'll get you on the TV show. And then it didn't work out. So what? I mean, I don't see that being that happens every day in the United States by everybody that lives on this planet. So I don't see that being
one of the questions. I'm sure one of the questions is going to be brought up, because it's in New York. But I'm sure one of the questions that's going to be brought up is, if he did that with Stormy Daniels, will they be able to bring up the other things that were done as well? Because I understand that they are going to try to bring in some of the Atlanta case, and they're also going to probably bring in the notion that he made promises to his tenants. He had a number of tenants that were there in New York as well, and some of those tenants have already won their suits against him. So if those tenants are brought into this suit, will that make the case harder?
So Stormy Daniels is not the only Trump sexual partner who got paid off. There's Karen McDougal, who got paid off using a different scheme. She got paid off by the National Enquirer as a favor to Trump. So she's going to be testifying too.
And they said they want to bring in E. Jean Carroll, and E. Jean Carroll just won her suit and everything. So there's
so why is this a campaign contribution issue?
Because if you're trying now, Trump's side is going to say, well, Trump was screwing around or was being blackmailed, for not even screwing around by these pretty ladies, and he just didn't want to hurt Melania's feelings. And I don't know how much water that argument will hold. But the only other the main reason the prosecutors say no, it wasn't. It was because the Access Hollywood pussy grabbing video had just come out. I saw this in the opening arguments that came out. The Trump campaign freaked out. I remember the day it came out. I was ecstatic because I thought that would torpedo Trump's campaign. And we were shopping for a TV, and I'm telling the sales guy, like, I was all excited, and my wife's like, shut up. He doesn't care about the pussy grabbing tape. But this comes out, they think it's going to kill his campaign. And so right then they jumped on Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels to make sure they didn't compound the problem. And if they're paying those people a total of $280,000 between the two of them to shut up, to save his campaign, then that's definitely those are campaign
Are
contributions.
they going to be able to produce a contract that shows that they were paid to shut up?
Yes,
But
there is paperwork.
Yeah, there's paperwork and there's a paper
Okay.
trail. And Nick, do all contracts
And
have to
what
be?
is what we haven't seen a copy of this contract, have we?
But all contracts have to be printed contracts. 'Cause I know that I was talking to somebody
Yeah,
recently,
printed contracts.
and they were talking about how they have been documenting what they have been going through because it was actually some stuff.
I don't want to hear. You know, I'm not even
community
sure.
And all along those lines, but some of those have been telephone conversations,
Depending on
some of
the
them have
judges,
been
may
written
not even
conversations,
provide
some of
the
them have been
direct version.
emails. So, I mean, what are we
You know,
defining as the paper contract? Because if there are email dialogues, then that could be considered contractual as well. Because I've heard that argued by some of my lawyer friends. And you're not the only lawyer friend I've got, Nick, and everything.
But actually, there's two of them that are actually on the jury, which I looked at. I found that kind of amusing because usually when I try to get on a jury, they say you're a lawyer, yeah, you're dismissed. I mean, I'm dismissed.
I've
there are
seen
two
one of
lawyers
the
that might be able to do
contracts. I've seen one of the contracts. It's a one-page contract.
What does it say?
Which Stormy Daniels then quickly debunked, where she disavows that anything happened, and it was like you say that Trump's lawyers are not very good. There was this sloppy.
They don't have good CVs. I'm not going to say they're not good.
Well, anyway, there
look
was
through their
this one
CVs, they
contract
lay down
where that Stormy Daniels apparently signed, I think, where it says that she never, had sex with Donald Trump, and it was just a garbage statement that she signed, that she said she had to sign to get the hush money. And then she quickly, on Jimmy Kimmel, like the same day she signed it, disavowed it.
Okay. So, and she's credible because why is she credible when she signs contracts and then she says, no, I don't mean what I said.
I just think she's more like I watched the documentary. So I watched like 90 minutes of her telling the story, and she seems credible. I mean, isn't that part of the deal?
Why would a person just lies seem credible to you, Rick? I mean, she just admit, hey, look, I lie when I want to, and all of a sudden she's credible. Why?
Well, because I listened to her story. I think she'll do well on the witness stand. I mean, part of
I'm sure she will. She's an attractive lady. She'll do real well on the witness stand. But the attorneys, if they're good, they'll tear her apart. Okay, I mean, it's real simple. Okay, let's see, you signed a contract, you lied about it, and then you just go on the air and say, hey, yeah, I sign contracts all the time. I lie about them all the time. And I'm credible because.
But Nick, isn't part of what's going to happen, and I could be
because
wrong,
of what I have ethics.
I know a lot of times, Nick, in a lot of cases, particularly around women, because we see this a lot of times around rape and abuse cases, that's going to become a trial less about Donald Trump and more about Stormy Daniels. And to your point, I think that there will be people that will be trying to drag her through the mud, if I can use that expression.
Oh, well, of course. Rick
gave her all bad things and bad judgments, even some of her
just gave me what I needed to drag her through the mud, Mark. I mean,
but I don't think she'll be so easily dragged because
the remember, they have to prove beyond any reasonable doubt, and the witness you're going to call is a porn star who admittedly lies whenever she feels like it. That's a real credible witness. I can't imagine a better witness to put on the stand.
Yeah, but I can't imagine. She's all right. Her porn star days are largely behind her. So, this Trump thing, the banging, the sex happened in 2006, 18 years ago. So, and she's been telling the story now for what, 8 years? Like when you put a rape victim on the stand and you tear them up, this is somebody who took a while to come forward, and they're not used to the process, and you confuse them, and I've been deposed, and you try to get people off balance and get them to like contradict them, but like she's been telling her story for 8 years, and like she's talked to a zillion lawyers, talked to a zillion media people. I think she'll stick to
Rick, and hasn't she gone on to do a more legitimate career and everything? Because I mean, just around the corner from me, because I live near Duke, we had a young lady that was a porn star and was actually going to be into the porn field because she was using it to attend school, because it is not a cheap school to go to, Duke, and all in that space. And she was definitely ridiculed when she was found out by some of her students, fellow students, and all in that space. But I think she's gone on to grad school and gone on to other great things in her life and everything. But what I'm understanding about Stormy is that she has actually moved into the more legitimate acting field, and there have been some porn stars that have done that. So is it?
Yeah, she was in. I think she was in the 40-Year-Old Virgin, a Judd Apatow movie. She's moved away from. I mean, she's still, the way you make money as a porn star is you get famous by making pornos, and then you go on tour of strip clubs across the U.S.
Yes.
And that's where you get, and you work for tips, and people are excited to give tips to a famous naked lady. So I don't know if she's still doing that, but she moved away from, I think, appearing in films to directing porn films, and she aspires to direct legitimate movies. And so, and I,
all right, I have another question, since you guys follow this guy, Donald Trump. How many crimes has Donald Trump been convicted of that you're aware of?
No crimes. He was just found liable in 2 civil cases against E. Jean Carroll for sexual assault.
Wasn't he also found liable in some of those apartment complexes that I mentioned earlier? I think he was found liable in some of those.
But
In 1973, he was investigated by the FBI, he and his dad, for racist renting practices. They wouldn't rent, they didn't like renting to black people. And so they were investigated and then sued by the Department of Justice and settled in 1973.
Was he convicted of a crime?
No, he's never been convicted of a crime, but he's been involved in 4,900 lawsuits. So
yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, civil suits are out there; they're everywhere. Okay, I mean, it's different. So you're telling me you're bringing charges against a guy who hasn't been convicted of any crime, and now all of a sudden he intentionally is violating election laws. Is that correct?
Yes.
But wait,
the upshot
I'm gonna be swimming uphill in this one.
No, I don't think. Well, so the deal is, so what that means as a first-time offender in this type of crime, he almost certainly won't get sent to prison.
Oh yeah, of course. But the real thing, are you going to be able to pin him with anything in this? Do you have another witness besides the porn star who lies?
Yeah, you've got the Playboy centerfold he was banging, Karen McDougal. You've got.
Is that what the best? Okay. Oh, Karen, is she going to be
and I believe the prosecution's witness list has like 80 people on it.
Wow. 80 people, and you're going to have.
But the trouble with that is you can't put 80 people on the stand, because you lose your jury. They'll be like, they'll just get fatigued and they won't pay, they'll quit paying attention.
Right. Okay. Well, it just tells me that this trial is going to go on for the 4 to 8 weeks that it's predicted to go on.
And yeah, it's going to be, it's going to continue to be a circus.
Okay. All right, Sasha, what do you have to say about this? Have you seen the opening statement?
We are blind and deaf because we don't understand what's happening in the courtroom. We know that there are 12 jurors, and it's all doesn't matter what's happened in the courtroom as long as all 12 will come to the same decision. It's much more likely that they will come to a decision that he is guilty than that he is acquitted, all 12 jurors. Very highly unlikely. Now, if it's not one of these two scenarios, then it will be a mistrial, and it will be tried again sometimes in the future. So right now, I have no doubts in my mind that obviously he's guilty and he will be found guilty, and most likely he will get a small sentence to jail, probably a few months. 3-4 months, probably most likely. But it remains to be seen. Maybe it will be a mistrial. That's the best outcome for Trump, a mistrial. And then to carry it out to after election, which he will never win anyway. So then he will be tried again with this trial and many other trials, and eventually he will be looked up.
He might get house arrest, but he certainly won't be locked up before the election because he'll delay it on appeal.
I'm predicting a mistrial, by the way, only because they have 2 lawyers on the jury, and these lawyers can be really stubborn. Okay, and all of a sudden you could have 8, you could have 11 of the juries going, "We think he's guilty," and one lawyer goes, "I don't think so." And they go, "Well, we need you to vote." Nope, not going to do it. And they just sit there, stubbornly sits there, and they just don't do anything, and you end up with a mistrial. So when I saw 2 lawyers on the jury, I go, "Well, this looks like it's heading to a mistrial."
Also, you've got 2 lawyers, at least one of whom is probably starting to write his pitch for the book he's going to try to sell about the trial.
Right. Or the mistrial, which might take place. I mean, seriously, it looks like it's heading for a mistrial.
A great title here: the greatest mistrial of the century.
The greatest mistrial of the century, right? But that one attorney goes, "Well, 80% of this is decided at opening statement." But when you have 2 lawyers on the jury, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I'm not sure, what's going to happen. And the composition of your jury is so important. So when I saw 2 lawyers, I thought they only had 1, but I saw 2 of them on there. I'm going, is this thing going to be headed toward a mistrial? Because they may say, "Oh no, I don't think he violated any law," and the other people go, "Oh yeah, he's guilty," and there you go. You're going to spend 4 to 8 weeks on a mistrial, or maybe 8 weeks on a mistrial. So we'll have to see. And I'm trying to figure out where is the juice for the prosecution. Since you heard the opening statements, what was the big?
I just saw notes
gun?
on it, and I was trying to talk to you at the same time. So my understanding of it is incomplete.
Oh, okay. Do you know what the smoking gun was, though? I mean, what are they smoking?
I'll start walking through this again and see.
Right, because I'm trying to figure out. Okay, what is the big crime here that took place? We know he wrote a check to his law firm. His law firm wrote checks to these other people. And now they're saying it should have been a campaign contribution they reported.
The court is now adjourned. The judge excuses jury. Not all the court, but the jurors are now done for the day.
Really? So they went through opening statement, and that was it.
And no, they started. They put Pecker on the stand. The
really?
Guy who owned,
the National Enquirer.
Yeah.
What was his testimony? What was the big thing?
8 minutes ago, Pecker says he had private email for things he didn't want his assistant to see. David Pecker says he had final say on big celebrity stories. Pecker says tabloids use textbook journalism. He just was. I don't know that he's done testifying, but the prosecution starts, right? He's the first prosecution witness.
Okay. Well, usually you put your best witness on first, so he should be the best witness. What is his big testimony that Donald Trump did wrong?
He's going to testify about the catch and kill of Karen McDougal. That McDougal had the story. Like, Trump banged Stormy Daniels once. I think he was banging McDougal, and it was going on for a while.
Wow.
So she had a juicier story. So the way they got her to shut up was the Enquirer, which supported Trump throughout the election, paid her $150,000 for her story, and then didn't run the story. catch and
Okay.
kill. Part of the 150 grand was you can't share your story with anybody else.
So,
Okay.
in my opinion, the allegations are that Trump was wanted to skew the election results by hiding from people both stories of McDougal and Stormy Daniels. Because if that, together with Hollywood tapes, would be all public, it's highly unlikely that Trump would be elected president of the United States. It's just as simple as that. So there was a trial of Michael Cohen, and he pleaded guilty. He served his time. Remember that in that trial, the individual number one on whose behalf Michael Cohen did these payments and all the arrangements, that was then President Donald Trump. That's the end of story. There is nothing more to say. During Michael Cohen's trial, it was already evident that Trump is guilty individual, much more than Michael Cohen, who served his time, because everything what he did on behalf and under direction of individual number one. Who is individual number one? Then President Donald Trump. Lock him up.
So, and so the verdict is one part of it, but another part is what damage the ongoing trial is doing. 2 months ago, Vegas odds had Trump being twice as likely to get elected as Biden. Now they're even odds, and in one market, Biden has pulled ahead, 55% chance to get elected against 45% for Trump. And his approval ratings, his net disapproval over the past month has gone from -8 to -11%. It was Trump had net disapproval of 8% during the 2020 election. So his net disapproval is already higher than it was during the last election, which doesn't mean that much, because Biden's net disapproval is much higher than it was during the last election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it goes back to my theory that this trial, depending on where it goes, will basically be where the election goes. If he's convicted, and has a felony conviction, his popularity will wane. If he wins, then all of a sudden his popularity will increase, because he'll start using the arguments that this weaponization by the Justice Department was bad, blah, blah, blah. So because of those two extremes, it'll probably be a mistrial, which neither party wins.
So that's one factor. The other factor is the Fed. If the Fed cuts interest rates in June or September, the stock market goes crazy. Everybody is super excited. We're returning to normal.
Right.
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, but the Fed isn't supposed to take this into consideration, isn't supposed to look at the election. Yeah, Sasha.
I think it's becoming more and more unlikely that this year Fed will lower interest rates. This reaction of the market on Friday was very, very clear when all market went down big time, and stock like NVIDIA, which is a darling for the last several months, it tanked 20% in one day.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. No, not 20, 10%, sorry.
10%,
But still,
right.
together in the last few weeks, it's 20%, but 10% in one day on Friday. So
Wow.
there is, it's a little bit repairing itself today, but we'll see how far it will go. So what I think is that it's a combination of several factors. And one of them, a few weeks ago, Trump was saying, no penny to Ukraine. No penny to Ukraine. Now he had to go to some kind of compromise. That Mike Johnson was whistling his way out of the situation. Why? Were they scared of the Democrats? I don't think so. What I think is that a lot of Republicans, more and more of them, are getting tired of this circus with Trump, with the trial, with the lying, and complete. He's changing his mind almost any day on every subject, whether it's abortion, whether it's a help to Ukraine, or so on. This is a lying. I'd like to stay civil, so he's a lying, politician or some kind of a creature that you cannot trust any word what he says, any word what he does. And remember, the Republican Party has to rebuild itself from the scratch. If Trump is out, preferably locked up in jail as long as possible, then it will be a necessity. Then Republicans will have to really rebuild their party to create a platform and to become a real party. Because today is not a real party, it's a party of Trump. But Trump is losing his grip over the party. And that's quite significant because without his grip, all the elections of all the representatives in the House and Republican senators, they're all becoming now almost like a gambling house. Nobody knows now where he stands, or whether people will not denounce him that he's not good. We need another representative, we need another candidate, and so on. So now they are really, really worried at their seats in Senate and in the House. Their $270,000 salary and free parking at the Dallas airport. They become worried, really worried about their time in the Senate, in Congress, their future, their financial future, if you will. So that's unraveling is going on right now. So Trump, they will throw him under the bus at first possibility. And I wouldn't be surprised in the Republican convention that after what's happening with Trump, maybe even Nikki Haley will be declared a candidate from Republican Party. I will not be surprised at all.
So
Very
the
interesting.
Republicans have 6 months to convince voters they're not a bunch of lunatics. And, Marjorie Taylor Greene looks like a lunatic. People compare her to like a caveman. She looks nuts. Lauren Boebert, who, comes across terribly, but Mike Johnson is the perfect guy to sell, to voters who aren't paying much attention, because he looks like the most reasonable guy in the world. His hair is always perfect. He has round glasses. You would trust him with to be your fiduciary.
Yeah, right.
He's got the same lunatic views as a lot of Republicans, but he looks and comes across as super reasonable, low key.
Yeah. Well, also when he pushed the backing of the Ukraine bill, it showed that he wasn't bending to the lunatics in his party, which is Marjorie Taylor Greene and company. And if you think about it, Marjorie Taylor Greene and company are the lunatic wing of the Republican Party. Now, here in North Carolina, though, these people are really, the two candidates are really kissing Trump's behind here. I'm telling you, in other words, this place, for them, Trump walks on water no matter what he does, which will be interesting. That's interesting how this trial goes, because will he be walking on water at the end of the trial, or will be the water fountain he's drinking out will be that of a federal penitentiary? So, he's got, he's got a lot at stake here on this particular issue.
Well, yeah, your governor candidate for the Republicans is a lunatic. He says that certain people are lizards wearing human skin. He denies the Holocaust. His career began as an internet troll where he would say crazy crap to get clicks, like me. Like, that's what I do all day. I'd say, ridiculous stuff to piss people off or to get in stupid fights, and that was that guy's career, and he turned it into becoming what, the lieutenant governor.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's the lieutenant governor who's running for governor, and and right now he's leading in the polls. But that tells you how loony there's places are in the United States of America. I mean, North Carolina has a big lunatic faction here, and Georgia obviously does. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene leads the loonies in northwestern.
But they have influence beyond just your state, where Arizona passes this crazy Civil War abortion ban, and that just doesn't only affect Arizona, it pisses off women in the other 49 states.
Yeah,
and guys who like women.
Yeah, it is a big problem in the United States. You have you have a lunatic fringe here, and a lot of them are sitting in the right. They're considered far right, but the thing is, they get into the mainstream and they get a lot of attention, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of them. And why they don't get rid of her, I don't know. I mean, it's just why Georgia keeps continuing to send her back to Congress is beyond the pale.
And this show is on the media, and the media constantly lags in its treatment of lunatics, because for most of America's for most of the 20th century, being a complete lunatic idiot was disqualifying in politics.
Right.
And so the media, has a habit of presenting lunatics, including Trump, as just normal politicians, and you're saying this was, and which doesn't know, they don't know how to run around with their hair on fire and say that this is a freaking disaster. Instead, they both sides it.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. Well, it sounds to me that all they did today was opening statements, and they had the person of the National Enquirer on. It looks like he's going to be on again tomorrow with 80 witnesses. I think you're right, Rick. They're not going to produce 80 witnesses. That's way too long of a trial. People will fall asleep. The jury's going to fall asleep, and I don't think the prosecution wants to bore the jury. But it still remains to be seen where this trial is going to go.
I assume that, like the OJ, we've been talking in the previous hour, we talked a little bit about the OJ trial, where the prosecution made a number of huge mistakes in that, including like their selection of they could have held the trial in a part of LA that would have gotten them more white jurors. They underestimated black jurors' pissed offness at white justice in LA. And then they made a number of tactical errors in the trial. What do we know enough about the prosecution team in this one to know whether they will avoid like dumb errors?
Nope. Yeah, you won't. I don't think you're going to know until it's over with. In other words, I was just trying to look through the jury's, biographies, because to see which way they're going to lean. Because the important thing is really the jury. It's like one person who was heading the right said, it's not so much important what you say; it's who you're talking to is important. In other words, what is their predilections and belief? If you impanel a jury of all Democrats, Trump goes down, because I've talked to enough Democrats. He's guilty, now bring him forward. Okay, I'm serious. They're not going to look at the facts. They're not going to look at the issues. He's guilty, now let's bring him and we'll take care of the trial. If you bring all the right-wing Republicans, he's innocent. Okay, what about the facts? No, doesn't matter. He's innocent.
So really, as we discussed in the previous hour, they published one of the things the jurors were asked was, what are your news sources?
Right.
And of the 12 jurors, one of them looks, I think, almost exclusively at Truth Social, which is Trump's social media platform. So that guy is almost certainly Trumpy. He must have been able to at least come across as, sufficiently reasonable to get on the jury.
Well, you usually have the attorney, again, this is New York, not Florida, so I don't know what the rules are, but usually the attorneys will have what they call peremptory challenges that they can use, and they'll have a certain amount of them that they can use that you can dismiss for any reason. In other words, somebody shows up, you don't like the way they look, and you can just say, juror A is dismissed. No reason whatsoever. The other ones you actually have to apply to the court. They're dismissed because of, and you want to get is because they're biased, for example. In other words, we can't have the judge agree with you and you don't use your peremptory challenges. Voir dire is probably one of the most important parts, and we got to miss it, of the legal proceeding. In other words, how and who are the jury that's impaneled? And then that part's important. Then the opening statement, which already took place, and now 80% of the trial is actually over with. So we have.
Is bias in juror selection grounds for appeal?
No. Generally, I would say no.
So it's not like they wanted to have one Trumpy, the prosecution let one Trumpy person through just so they can't say that they were biased, or no?
No. The thing is, you actually have to have a mistake of law or fact. And the thing is, generally, to be able to appeal, what is the mistake of law? And it's really hard. There was a SSRN study done on appeals. 76% of the trial judge decision is upheld. So you're basically have a 24%, because you like to do odds, Rick. If you lost at trial, you have a 24% chance of getting it reversed. So the last case that last two cases Don lost, he only has a 24% chance each of getting them reversed on appeal. One was that big judgment, 400 million, and the other one was 80 million. So he's actually odds on not favored to get them overturned. That makes the trial very important, because that's 75% basically of your case. So, it remains to be seen, but it's not.
It's got a question for you, Nick. Are you going to rush out there and get because we know that Donald has been selling different things, Bibles and shoes, and a lot of been given out and everything. But apparently, he's not the only one, because former First Lady Melania Trump is got a online retail venture with a gold vermeil necklace that she's selling for $245, and she apparently is targeting Mother's Day, since we know Mother's Day is coming up, and she wants to honor all the moms out there. So she said, let's honor and celebrate all mothers with love and gratitude, she wrote on.
I'm on one of his lists. I don't know how I got on there, but they sent me a $2 Donald Trump bill. They sent me a gold Donald Trump encased in gold or something like that. And they sent me something else, and it's all to support the Donald. And I hate to say I'm not interested in any of it. They can send me it all they want to, but let me tell you something. I will go see Sasha's show on modern investing, invest in NVIDIA stock before I buy anything that Donald Trump
is. Apparently, I know that Sasha is a big fan of crypto and all along those lines. And yes, I'm being sarcastic, Sasha. But the former First Lady also launched her own non-fungible token back in 2022. So they're definitely listed and everything. So apparently, the Don is getting into the Bitcoin space as well, or at least he is through his ex-wife and everything in that space. So maybe they're going to find a way to use Bitcoin and the blockchain technology to actually get some funding for the court trial and all in that space. Rick?
I already said
I just
several times, the reason that Trump is so much against abortions is that there is a sucker born every minute. So according to Trump, the more suckers will be born, the more of them will buy Bitcoins and whatever Melania is selling, or whatever is there, or the Donald DJT stock, which is
DJT stock.
Lost 50% in a matter of a few weeks or less.
I can't wait to buy a stock that's losing in a company.
Well, I mean, Nick, aren't you rushing out there to get pictures? Aren't you rushing to get pictures of Byron's prom date? Because apparently he just had his prom recently, and now they're trying to decide if the Don can go to his graduation, and I know that he's been yelling at the judge that he's upset that the judge won't let him go to the graduation.
But
The judge said no such thing. The judge said, we'll see how the trial's going, and we might be, if it's on track, yeah, you might be able to go. But Fox News and Trump have been saying the judge isn't letting me go. So court is wrapped for the day. Tomorrow they're going to have a gag order hearing because Trump just keeps kind of violating the various things. And let's see what else.
Hey, hold on a second. I've got a question for you, Rick. And actually, Nick may remember this as well. I don't know that Sasha will, because this took at a time in history when he was actually probably living in Russia or Ukraine at the time. But, way back when I was a youngster, I believe it was 68 or 69, there was a famous trial where they literally gagged and physically gagged the participants and all in that space. And that was the Chicago riots that took place when they were having their convention in Chicago. I think that was 1968, and some of the Black Panthers literally were gagged and muzzled. Yes, you can look up the pictures. They were muzzled. So I'm wondering, are we going to go back to those days, and are we going to have to muzzle Mr. Trump and everything? Because definitely there are pictures, and you can find them. I think it was either Bobby Seals or it might have been one of the other members of the Black Panthers. It might have been
there was another famous defendant who was muzzled, Hannibal Lecter. You might remember. They made a movie about the guy.
Yes.
Well, we'll see about the First Amendment. Speaking about First Amendment, Mark, can you close out here, because I have to go to the timeshare show.
Timeshare, I can definitely close out here. That's no problem at all.
You close out, and
I'll close out over here. But what are your thoughts, Asha? Do you think that we need to? Well, Nick is going, and we'll close out in about 9 minutes so he can do the timeshare. But do you think we need to muzzle Mr. Trump, and would you be in favor of muzzling him? Because like you said, Hannibal Lecter was muzzled. Definitely one of the Black Panthers was muzzled. There have been other cases where literally that's a way to keep him quiet.
Mark, I hardly can understand what you're talking about, muzzle Trump himself. I don't think that he's appearing on our shows. So what you are talking about, the muzzle any discussions about Trump and his trials and everything else?
No, like Rick knows what I'm talking about. A muzzle is literally they will put a restraint on his face. He cannot speak while he's in the court. He will be physically muzzled. It'll be like having a gag on your face and everything. So that's what they've done.
It would be more useful to put muzzle on his behind so he will stop farting and the smell.
I was going to ask about that because they are saying that it is very smelly and that it is causing a lot of issues, because I was reading about that, where there's a number of people in the courtrooms that are saying that it is not a pleasant odor. Not that a fart is ever pleasant and everything, but apparently his is being very crass and very nasty and everything. So, Rick, what are you hearing about this farting news? All
right. So the deal is, like, Trump's dad died of Alzheimer's, but he was 16 years older than Trump is now. When he died, he had Alzheimer's that was obvious for maybe 7 years. So people wondering, with the sleeping and the farting, is something wrong with Trump's brain? Is something new wrong with his brain? And it's hard to tell, because apparently he just lets farts rip. Has a history of this. It's not a new thing. But bad smells are associated with Trump, and but the question is, this trial, he's going to be on stage in this courtroom, where he just has to sit there for 6 weeks, and what is he going to continue? Is he going to continue to do weird stuff?
Well, he's already highly upset at my state and Nick's state as well in North Carolina, because apparently the weather did not cooperate, because during the time of the trial being off and everything, he was supposed to be making some campaign stops, and I think we had some thunderstorms and some other things that got in the way. So he definitely did not have the 2 stops that he was planning to have here in this particular swing state, because the weather was going like, no, we don't want you down here. So they were not cooperating weather-wise and all in that space. So I'm sure he's going to blame the weatherman for arranging bad weather for his trip down here, because he likes to blame just about anybody for anything and everything. But
there's another thing that in the past year or so, he's gotten much worse at applying his makeup. So he looks weirder. And, to his voters, that doesn't matter. And to, a lot of people can look past it, but he'll get it on the front of his face, but he'll miss the sides. He misses his ears. And who knows how much of that influences voters.
Well, I've got a question for you on that, and maybe Sasha wants to get into this as well. There was a very popular TV show that talked about the Trump presidency before the Trump presidency, and that was The Simpsons. But part of the way they depicted Trump before he became president was almost as a Bozo the Clown kind of character, and all along those lines. So with his bad makeup, is he not falling into that stereotype of what was portrayed of him in The Simpsons? And I want to say that was in the early 2000s, because it was way before he was elected, and all in that space. And a lot of people have noticed this idea that things might be predicted by our television
People,
and our
people have made fun of Trump for 40 years. Back to the Future. The main villain in the Back to the Future trilogy is a guy named Biff Tannen,
Right.
who, as he gets older, has the same comb over as Trump. And the screenwriter of those movies said that, yeah, he based Biff Tannen on Trump. And that was in 1984. So even back then, and there was a magazine in New York City called Spy Magazine that made fun of him just about every month. And even back then, people knew that Trump was a jackass, but it didn't matter because who cares? There's plenty of jackasses. It didn't matter to people because he wasn't in charge of America's destiny.
Yeah,
he was
definitely.
just a guy who went on Howard Stern. And, you know,
I know we're here to wind down and everything, but I was going to say, and I meant to mention this earlier since this is the media show, y'all have got to love that because we get hit sometimes. I actually got hit. I think it might have been on my personal YouTube and everything, but it was for an interview that I did with one of, and Rick, you'll love this. It was one of those kind of conspiracy theorists and all along those lines. So anybody that knows who Ole Dahmer is and all in that space, but he is a known conspiracy theorist. And I did that interview in the early days of TV when it was IBM TV. So that interview had been out there for about 3 or 4 years, and they just now hit me with a strike for medical misinformation. And it wasn't even my information. It was his ideas of the vaccine and a number of other things. But the strike literally just, I got the email today.
A strike is on YouTube. They'll say, you know, we looked at your video and you are saying things that we don't allow to be said on YouTube. And so we're taking down your video and giving you a strike. And I've been getting the same thing. So the show I do with Lance, we used to do on YouTube and quit doing it because we started getting strikes. So we stopped doing it, I don't know, right before COVID. So no, right after. So like we stopped in 2021.
Right.
And I still get emails from YouTube saying, "Oh, you got another ding. We took down another one of your
videos." Like I said, that Ole Dahmer interview had to have been in 2021, or I don't think it was 2022. I think it was 2021. And so it was one of the early interviews that I did with this particular network and everything. And actually, it's considered one of the biggest watched interviews because, like I said, he is a known, I think he lives in Switzerland, or at least he's known conspiracy theorist on a lot of things. And he had a lot of things that he said that were of controversial interest, whether that was around the Illuminati or a number of other things that he talked about and everything. But like I said, that interview was literally 3 years ago, and YouTube is just now getting around. And like you said, they said that it's a strike. It doesn't go against you and it won't impact you, but we just felt it was medical misinformation. And I'm going like, one, it wasn't my opinion, it was his opinion. And two, y'all are coming after me 3 years after the fact.
You can't, even if you're saying, well, that's a dumb thing to say, that YouTube doesn't care. Because like my show with Lance says ivermectin and then the hydroxychloroquine, good. And I say, Lance, you're a freaking idiot. It's been disproved. YouTube doesn't care. If it was brought up, that's a strike.
Yep. That is just crazy, but that is the way our social media is and all along those lines. Well, I know we've got to wrap up because we got that whole show around timeshares, and I've got another show, and then we've got a lady that is running actually for one of the top education jobs, but she's on our network. So Dr. Anthony is running for a educational spot and is a voting poll and all along those lines. And she does the all around show here on the network at 6 o'clock. So she'll be coming our way at 6 o'clock talking about education and other issues as well. But last time I checked, she was in the number 3 spot, and whoever wins will get some money and I think a trip to Hawaii and a number of other things. So she is one of our people and is climbing up the ranks. So right now she's only 2 away from being that winner and all along those lines. So definitely check it out. And I'm sure she'll be talking about that on her show later as well. So we've got a lot of more great shows, including Maxine. It'll be a rerun for Maxine, but she's always got some great business conversations. And I do know that tomorrow we've got more of that great conversation about Ukraine, Russia, and China that'll be coming our way at 11 o'clock on Tuesday and Friday. But right now we're going to get on out of here, and Nick's going to do that timeshare show.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your shows.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.